He is a YouTuber who specializes in Dennis Miller-style rants on metal, movies, and digital amusement. If those things aren't your speed, he has more recently been dabbling in the criticisms of regressive and corrupt politicians, anti-fascists, and journalists. Welcome to Honey Badger Radio, RazorFist. Sorry, this will likely kill your channel because you are now fraternizing with filthy MRAs.
Wait. I'm a guest? I thought I was just sitting here in a chair quietly harassing you. Damn it! VidCon, you have lied to me again.
No, you are... Wait, you are sitting there silently, but not because you're talking. So wait. So when you talk, I sit silently, and then I'm harassing you. And that's how we're going to do this. And then when I talk... yeah, that's how that works.
Exactly.
That's right. Man existing. It's the latest crime. How long have you been doing this? It seems like years. How long have you been doing YouTube stuff?
YouTube, since about 2009.
Holy shit.
Yeah. On and off. But yeah.
And what got you interested in doing it? Why did you say, you know what, I want to make content for this corner of the dark internet?
I did not start out on YouTube. It's rather hilarious that I'm kind of associated with it now, but I initially started out... I was doing blogs for, well, I mean, if you want to go back even further, I started out doing political internet radio.
Really?
Years ago, yeah. And then I did a little bit of local political terrestrial radio. Just doing, you know, in the internship thing at the local terrestrial radio station. But anyways, yeah... And then moving forward, I started writing blogs. This'll carbon date my ass. I started writing blogs on MySpace.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, just ranting about minutia of the day, shitty driving stories. They were basically, I was doing a lot of open mic nights at stand-up clubs and so forth. So I was basically just hacking out my act. In text form, and it was just entertaining my friends, really, is all it was. And so one day, I procured the DVD of a Stallone classic, a cinematic gem by the name of Cobra.
Oh, yeah.
Where, I was reviewing that in text form, and I was kind of, like, writing it out, and I realized, yeah, this would be a lot better if I just had video to go with this, and because I knew how to edit audio, obviously, coming from radio. So I knew a friend who knew how to edit. That was Taryn Gell, who wound up joining me, and we made the first episode of The Rageaholic. And then we uploaded on YouTube weeks later, just incidentally, and YouTube was never my primary preoccupation. I was uploading primarily to like game trailers and a website called Screw Attack, and people seemed to dig it over there. Over on YouTube, it was nothing but abject indifference. So I was like, fuck YouTube, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
So that was really how it started, and then it just kind of snowballed. I didn't even intend for it to be a show, really. In fact, I didn't come up with the name of the show. I didn't name my own damn show. My editor did. He was like, we should probably call this something. And I'm trying to be all highfalutin. We'll call it some 9-syllable name that's a quasi-reference to Nietzsche. And he's like, no, we're going to call it The Rageaholic, asshole. That's what you're going to do. And I'm like, all right, whatever.
God, there's so much to ask about what's currently going on. Do you have any, I've been watching your videos, everything leading up to the Donald Trump election. So what do you think about Trump right now?
I think when you grow up watching politics and actually following it, this is, I think, something that even a lot of recently converted conservatives or mere shitlords fail to take into account is when you compare what Donald Trump has been able to accomplish. Yeah, he hasn't yet gotten the wall built. He's being fought tooth and nail on that one. He hasn't yet... Well, actually, he is instituting the immigration ban. That appears to have largely been upheld. But... even before that, like back in January when he signed all those executive orders, Donald Trump did more in a week than any president had in my entire lifetime. More than he promised that he would do in a week. So largely, I'm placated if he gets the fucking wall built. Like, to me, best president of my lifetime. He could pretty much kill a man at that point, and I'd still be like, right on, sweet. I mean, fuck, if JFK can start the Vietnam War, and get his head blown off and be considered one of the greatest presidents ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
At a certain point, you got to cut Donald Trump some slack if he's able to actually do everything he says he's going to do, because that's why he was goddamn elected.
Right. I'm usually of the opinion that when a president is running, they make a few promises. If they fulfill at least one of them, that's like, I'm not saying that satisfies me, but I think it's about as much as you can ask for, considering how sort of bipartisan our parties are and how much they fight each other and trying to get shit done. Right.
I think that's the barometer. That's the metric at this point, and that it's sad that that's what the presidency has been reduced to. Mm-hmm. But really, it seems like going back through all the presidents through my lifetime, you can pretty much say, oh, as long as you can say, well, he got those two things done, then you're like, oh, he was a solid president. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That seems to be the way that we measure success now. That didn't used to be the way that it is. You know, Teddy goddamn Roosevelt would slam 12 cups of coffee before 5 o'clock in the morning. He'd pull stumps out of the White House lawn by hand. Like, he would get a million things done before noon. Mm-hmm. And now, like, Donald Trump signs a bunch of executive orders, pushes to build a wall and whatever, and people are like, oh my God, he's a dictator. Holy shit. And he's so vengeful, too. Like, what the fuck? Teddy Roosevelt lost an entire election out of spite. Like, are you kidding me? Are you people fucking shitting me? No one could be as vindictive as that fucking. He's considered one of the greatest presidents ever. What a liberal was in 1876 and what a liberal is in 2017 are completely different. And I think a lot of like classical liberalism would actually fall more in line with the conservative platform today, in terms of getting the government out of our lives, in terms of shrinking its scope and allowing you to breathe a little bit. So it depends. That's why I've often argued, and I'm not sure if I've ever actually put this in video form, but I've said this for years. I think a huge hurdle for the right in this country, certainly in any English-speaking country, I think entire political arguments are won and lost based on terminology, or are won and lost based on simple English. And when you really come right down to it, you kind of have a situation where, like, conservatives are not conservatives. The word conservative has certain connotations. The word progressive has certain connotations. And the moment the right allowed the left to refer to themselves as progressive, when you look at what the word progressive means, when you look at its root, it means to progress, to move to the next horizon, to look to the next thing, to try something that's never been tried before. That's an inaccurate descriptor for the left. They're employing ancient ideas, old ideas that have been tried, in some cases failed. Socialism is not a new philosophy, folks. That's not progressive at all. That's not progressive at all. Conversely, if you look at the right and look at what at least the most extreme, like, libertarian adherents to conservatism are proposing, you're talking about limited government, limited interference in our lives. Folks, that's the only form of government that's never been tried. Yeah. Ever. Anywhere. Under any circumstances. So if you really want to get painstakingly technical about it, the right are the true progressives, and the progressives are the true regressives. There's a connotation to conservatism that says, well, they're going backward. There's a regressive connotation to conservatism. If you say the word conservative, there are certain connotations, like, rightly or wrongly, stuffed shirts, tweed sweater vests. You know what I mean? Like, there's a kind of a stuffy quality to it, a backward-looking quality to it. And I think the moment the right allowed them to refer to themselves as progressives and refer to themselves as conservative, I think they kind of lost a certain element of the argument, and they're going to have to overcome that at some point. I think that's one of the reasons, the left has pounced so hard on the term alt-right, because they know language wins entire debates before a single word has been said. It's rather interesting that so many people on the third wave feminist dole, as it were, tend to also subscribe to the gender as a social construct idea. Because when you really break it down, feminism is the most constructed of social constructs. Mm-hmm. If you look back through, if you're a student of history in any discernible fashion, you look through and you see powerful women aplenty, Joan of Arc and whoever. You look at Calamity Jane. Mm-hmm. Was that not a liberated woman? She was
Mary Queen of
Scots, business owner and a scout for Custer. It goes on and on and on. But she needed feminism to come along and tell her, codify her concepts, and create something for her to be. No, I think Calamity Jane was herself first.
For sure.
I think that was probably what happened first. That really is at the core of it. Their problem is not the masculine. It's not the right. It's not MRAs. Their problem, really, at the end of the day, is individuality. Mm-hmm. They need to break people down into the collective, and
the sisterhood.
The construct of feminism is the most effective tool to do that. I'm a big fan of that guy T, though.
Yeah, I am too. No, so I had him on the show, and he actually mentioned something that I find really interesting, and I think it is really true about MRAs, and this is why I was asking you about them, because the thing about feminists is, feminism is essentially socialism with panties. Like they want to have the government replace men in women's lives, and they want women to be dependent on it. So this isn't good for men or women at the end of the day. It's not about liberation. It's not about choice. It's not about freedom. It's not about individualism. It's not about any of that, and which we've already covered.
Well, it's about categorization always with the left.
Mm-hmm.
Always. It's about categorization and corralling people into their convenient ethnic and or social and or socio-political phylums, and they're all corralled into their little political pig pens. Mm-hmm. And rather conveniently, the implication for everyone in every single pig pen is, oh, hey, by the way, vote for Democrats.
Oh yeah, of course.
As long that you notice, that's the only constant. Mm-hmm. Everything else fluctuates. Yep. Everything else is amorphous. But the one thing that's inviolable is, oh, hey, by the way, you all vote for the same person.
Yeah, exactly. Or they just bring in, like when they want to bring in people, they want to make sure they bring in people that are more likely to vote Democrat.
Yeah.
So, but what that guy T brought up something that I had thought about, but I didn't expect that he would actually confirm. See, a lot of times when people are talking about MRAs, they look at them as the mirror of feminism, in which case the belief is that if MRAs ever had the kind of lobbying, political, economic, academic, entertainment, media power that feminism has, it would become feminism for men, which I think is ludicrous only because of things like gynocentrism, and like there's just no way it's going to happen at that scale. However, even with that taken into account, that guy T brought up something that I had thought about, which is that's not really the case. MRAs are not the opposite, because MRAs don't want to use the government to do things for them. They actually want to be free from the government. They actually are looking to get out of the super corrupt family court system, look at issues facing male incarceration rates, or at least make the female ones more sort of equal, or address it, like to point out that it exists. They want to look at things like circumcision. They want to look at things like all these most of the issues that men are dealing with are actually more of a consequence of the shackles to the state rather than a desire to be free from it, which I think is what MRAs want. They want to be free from the state. So yeah. I think that's actually why a lot of people who get involved with the men's movement have libertarian or right-wing leanings, or at the very least, are centrist.
Whenever you wind up with an authority of any kind that has to arbitrate on an issue between a feminist and anyone else, I mean, fuck. Hey, at least VidCon. Look at the VidCon situation. This is a rather innocuous example, but the guy at VidCon sure came down decisively on the side of right and justice there, didn't he?
Yeah.
If Hank Green were any farther up Anita's ass, she would have been hawking. She'd be hawking up his hipster glasses.
What are your thoughts on the G20 riots and protests, depending on who you ask, that have been going on in Germany lately? You know about that, I assume.
Yeah, that's actually what inspired the rant that I'm going to be cutting here about the formation of the fascist party and Mussolini and so forth, because it's shocking how unaware these people are. This is one of the reasons why I had to read this book again. I've read Mussolini's biography, My Rise and Fall, a number of times. Actually, the first time I read it was in like 6th grade or so. Like, I've always found the character fascinating. I've used him for reports and so forth in school, assignments, whatever. If you have to do a biography, whatever.
Why Mussolini and not like Hitler or fucking Hirohito or some shit?
And here's why. Here's why I think he's more important than Hitler, because he founded fascism. Mm-hmm. He's a really important figure because all of the successes and failures of fascism are wrapped up in his biography. Everything about him communicates all of the fallibilities, why fascism can never work, why it's so seductive. That's the most important bit. Why? Because people think, oh, I can identify fascism on sight. Fucking jack boots, goose stepping in the streets. No, motherfucker, look at Hamburg. They're literally marching on a capital. They're literally marching on a city. They're rioting. They're committing a mass string of arsons in black shirts. That is literally how the fucking March on Rome started. That is literally how the fascist party was founded. They went around in major cities and burned their fucking rivals. They committed mass arsons. That's how fascism started. Antifa is fascism. That's what it is. It's not even, that's not hyperbole. That's not, no.
It's the definition.
Outright. One-to-one comparison, they are the new fascism. Fact. They're even rooted in socialism, just like the original fascism.
While taking photos with their iPhone 7s of the carnage.
They're fascism with selfies, is what they are.
Exactly. I am a very big fan of Yngwie Malmsteen and Borislav Mitic. I hope I pronounced that correctly. What are some other bands you might recommend to me that are similar?
I'd recommend Jace Lundberg. There's a guy by the name of Jace Lundberg who's a Swedish guitarist, very Malmsteen influenced, but he's also a little bit more eclectic than Yngwie is. He doesn't just do like power metal type stuff. Mm-hmm. He also has sort of poppier stuff, a little bit industrial on occasion, really varied, but a great guitarist. And he has one of Yngwie's former singers, Göran Edman, as his singer. They're really good. I would say, what's the band that his Stradivarius. Stradivarius would be another one that I would recommend. Stradivarius, I believe, has the same keyboardist from a lot of the classic Yngwie Malmsteen records. And that keyboard player is actually, don't dismiss that, keyboard player in metal. No, he was like one of the kind of core creative team in the original Yngwie Malmsteen records. So a lot of that sound is him.
Hey, Rush has a keyboard player.
Yeah, well, a lot of bands have a keyboard player. It's not like they're completely out of place.
No.
But for power metal, I would argue they're somewhat necessary.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just because we were talking about names and shit, what's the most badass band name you ever heard that's real? There was a great band. There's a great band who I remember back in the day. I had a band that they friended. They friended me on MySpace. Oh shit!
And the name of the band is Big Fucking Snake. That's just, you can't improve on that.
No, you can't.
It cannot be improved on. Big Fucking Snake. I mean, come on.
No, you can't.
You have reached optimal badassery, my friend. Fever pitch.